The discovery on the frozen moon. The starship Scavenger sliced through the void, its sleek form gliding toward a desolate, frozen moon on the outskirts of the known galaxy. Captain Lizra, a seasoned Yan with sharp instincts, watched the lifeless landscape through the viewport, her tail swaying rhythmically in anticipation. The mission was clear. Investigate an ancient Premigration military base rumored to house a legendary human weapon, lost to time. Readings show that the facility is still operational, Zate, the ship's AI, reported in its calm, mechanical voice. Multiple robotic arms extended from its central console, managing the ship's complex systems with effortless precision. Despite the age of the base, something within its depths was still alive, still functioning. Lizra's brow furrowed. "Are there any life forms detected, Zate?" "None on the scanners, Captain," Zate replied. "But the base's systems have been rewritten entirely from scratch. This is no simple outpost." Lizra glanced at Argyle, the hulking endurant warrior who filled much of the cramped control room. His purple, muscular frame barely fit within the confines, and his expression was one of frustration. "If there's nothing down there, I'm going to have a word with IGN Marth," Argyle grumbled. "And by word, I mean my fist in his face." "Patience, Argyle," Lizra said, her voice steady. "If this base is still operational after all this time, there's something valuable down there. Let's find out what." The Scavenger descended toward the moon, its landing gears touching down on a crumbling platform. The trio suited up, ready to face whatever lay within the ancient facility. As they approached the massive entrance, Zate began interfacing with the door's control panel, trying to gain access. Minutes passed, and Zate's efforts were met with failure. The coding language was unlike anything in its vast database, a complete enigma. "Captain, this might take longer than expected," Zate admitted. "The entire system has been reprogrammed from the ground up." Lizra's ears twitched in frustration. This place is over 1,000 years old. How could someone have rewritten everything? Before Zate could respond, Argyle, tired of waiting, took matters into his own hands. Literally, he reeled back and punched the door with a force that echoed across the barren landscape. The metal dented under the impact. "Argyle, stop," Lizra shouted, leaping up to grab his arm. "These structures are fragile. You could cause irreparable damage." As if in response to her command, the door suddenly hissed and slid open. Lizra looked at Zate, who shook its head. "It wasn't me, Captain." A cold draft swept through the open doorway, carrying with it a sense of foreboding. The darkness beyond seemed to beckon them inside. "Stay sharp," Lizra ordered. "Whatever's in there, it's been waiting a long time." With that, the team ventured into the depths of the forgotten base, unaware of the secrets it held and the dangers that lurked within, echoes of the past. As Lizra, Argyle, and Zate stepped into the facility, the chill of the ancient base wrapped around them. The interior was vast, with towering ceilings and long, echoing corridors. Dust and debris had settled over everything, but there was a strange sense of order, as if someone had meticulously arranged the chaos. "Keep your eyes open," Lizra instructed, her voice echoing through the empty hallways. The facility's lighting flickered intermittently, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. Argyle's massive frame moved cautiously, each step causing the floor to creak under his weight. Despite his grumbling, his eyes were sharp, scanning for any signs of movement. Zate's mechanical arms worked tirelessly, interfacing with the facility's systems and trying to decipher the alien coding. "We're picking up some faint energy readings," Zate reported. "The power seems to be centralized in a chamber further down this corridor." Lizra nodded. "Lead the way." The corridor twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the facility. Along the walls, faded insignias and ancient symbols hinted at the base's once great purpose. Lizra couldn't help but wonder about the humans who had once inhabited this place and what had become of them. Suddenly, a low hum filled the air, growing louder with each step. The source of the sound became apparent as they approached a large chamber. The door to the chamber was partially open, its mechanisms struggling to function after centuries of neglect. Lizra signaled to Argyle to push the door open. Inside, the chamber was dominated by a large, intricate console. Strange symbols and interfaces covered its surface, and a faint blue light pulsed rhythmically from within. The console was connected to a series of massive, old-fashioned computer terminals that seemed to be in working condition. "Looks like this is where the power is coming from," Zate said, extending its arms to interface with the terminals. "I'll try to access the mainframe and see if we can gather any useful information." Lizra watched as Zate worked, its mechanical limbs moving with practiced precision. The console beat and whirred, and a holographic display flickered to life, projecting a series of symbols and data streams. Argyle, ever the skeptic, grumbled, "We better find something worth all this trouble, or I'm going to start questioning our choices." As the data began to load, a series of messages and logs appeared on the display. Most of it was indecipherable, a jumble of ancient code and forgotten languages. But one message caught Lizra's attention. "Project Omega. Final phase initiated. Prepare for activation." "What's Project Omega?" Lizra wondered aloud, her curiosity piqued. Zate paused its work and turned toward Lizra. From the context, it seems Project Omega was a significant initiative. It could be related to the legendary weapon we're searching for. A sudden noise made them all jump. The chamber's power flickered erratically, and the hum intensified. The lights dimmed, and a series of klaxons began to blare. Lizra's heart raced. What's happening? Zate's sensors detected an anomaly. The facility is initiating a lockdown sequence. It appears that the base is trying to protect itself from intruders. Before Lizra could react, the doors to the chamber began to close. Argyle immediately moved to hold them open, his strength straining against the heavy metal. "We need to hurry," he shouted over the noise. As they scrambled to gather information from the console, the room was bathed in an eerie red light. The facility's security systems were activating, and it became clear that their presence had triggered some ancient defenses. Lizra grabbed a data chip from one of the terminals and stuffed it into her pack. "We've got what we need for now. Let's get out before this place seals us in." With a final push, Argyle managed to force the doors open just enough for them to escape. The trio raced down the corridors, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. The facility's alarm continued to wail, echoing through the vast emptiness. As they emerged back into the open, the cold air was a welcome relief compared to the chaotic energy of the facility. Lizra took a deep breath and looked at her companions. "We've got the data. Now we need to analyze it and figure out what Project Omega truly is." Argyle nodded, his expression serious. "And if this base is any indication, we'd better be prepared for what comes next." The team returned to the scavenger, their minds racing with possibilities. The ancient base had revealed only a fraction of its secrets, and Lizra knew that the real challenge was yet to come, unveiling Project Omega. Back aboard the scavenger, Lizra, Argyle, and Zate gathered around the central console, the data chip securely inserted. The ship's dimly lit command room was a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. The soft hum of the ship's engines provided a soothing backdrop as Zate began to decrypt the information. "The data from the facility is substantial," Zate announced, its mechanical voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "I'm extracting the relevant files now." Lizra watched the screen intently as lines of code and ancient schematics began to materialize. The files appeared to be a mix of technical blueprints and logs, some of which were remarkably well preserved. "What do we have here, Zate?" Lizra asked, trying to make sense of the complex data. Zate processed the information rapidly. The schematics suggest that Project Omega was indeed a weapon, but it seems to be more than just a simple armament. It was designed to be a powerful tool with multifaceted capabilities. Argyle leaned in, his curiosity piqued despite his earlier annoyance. "Capabilities? Like what?" Zate continued, the data indicates that Project Omega was intended for both offensive and defensive purposes. It appears to be a highly advanced piece of technology with the ability to manipulate energy fields, create defensive barriers, and possibly even alter the fabric of space-time. Lizra's eyes widened. That sounds incredible. If this weapon is what we think it is, it could have significant implications for both us and our enemies. As Zate delved deeper into the files, an old log appeared on the screen. It was a personal entry from one of the facility's last inhabitants. The message was filled with technical jargon, but a few key phrases stood out. Final testing of Omega. The risks are significant, but the potential benefits could be monumental. If successful, Omega could provide a decisive advantage in any conflict. But if it falls into the wrong hands, it could spell disaster. Lizra frowned. So this weapon has the potential to be a game-changer or a catastrophic threat. We need to understand more about its capabilities and the safeguards that were put in place. Zate's mechanical arms whirred as it accessed additional files. There are mentions of safety protocols and a fail-safe mechanism designed to prevent unauthorized activation. It appears that the facility had a sophisticated system for controlling access. Argyle, still processing the information, crossed his arms. If this thing is as dangerous as it sounds, we need to be extremely careful. What's our next step? Lizra thought for a moment. We need to find more detailed schematics and any records related to the activation and control of Project Omega. The facility's logs mentioned a secure storage area. It's possible that we missed something important. Zate nodded in agreement. I can track down additional data on the secure storage area. It might provide more insight into the weapon's final design and operational protocols. As Zate worked, Lizra took a moment to reflect. The ancient base had offered a glimpse into something far greater than they had initially imagined. The potential of Project Omega was enormous, but so were the risks. Hours passed as the team worked tirelessly to piece together the puzzle. The ship's navigation system plotted a course for another site mentioned in the data, a secondary facility that might hold further information about the weapon. We're ready to head out, Zate said, having extracted all relevant information. The coordinates for the secondary facility are set. It's located on a remote planet within the same star system. Lizra turned to Argyle. How's our fuel supply? We'll need to make sure we're well stocked for the next leg of the journey. Argyle nodded. We're good to go. I'll make sure everything is prepared. With everything in place, the scavenger set a course for the secondary facility. The crew was tired but determined. The discovery of Project Omega had opened a new chapter in their mission, and the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. As they traveled through the cold expanse of space, Lizra couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of uncovering something monumental, something that could change the course of their lives and the fate of their galaxy. The journey to the secondary facility promised more answers, but also more challenges. Lizra and her crew were ready to face whatever lay ahead, driven by the hope that they might yet discover the true potential of the legendary human weapon and safeguard it from those who would misuse it. The hidden labyrinth. The scavenger approached the remote planet, its surface a rugged mix of rocky terrain and ancient geological formations. Lizra stood at the viewport, observing the desolate beauty of the planet. It was a stark contrast to the frozen moon they had just left, a place untouched and forgotten. We've arrived, Zate announced as the ship descended toward a large, isolated structure partially buried in the rocky ground. The secondary facility's entrance was partially obscured by debris and overgrowth, giving it an eerie, abandoned look. Lizra turned to her team. This is it. The data suggested that this facility could hold the key to fully understanding Project Omega. We need to be thorough. Argyle grunted in agreement, his large hands ready to assist with any physical tasks. Let's get this place open. As the team disembarked and approached the facility, the entrance was protected by a heavy, rusted door. Zate once again interfaced with the control panel, but this time the process was more complex. The coding was even more intricate and alien, clearly designed to be secure against unauthorized access. "Captain, this might take a while," Zait said, its mechanical voice tinged with frustration. "The security systems here are far more advanced than those at the previous facility." Lizra nodded. "Understood. Argyle and I will keep an eye out for any potential threats." The two set up a perimeter around the entrance, scanning for any signs of danger. The facility's exterior was silent, save for the occasional rustle of wind and the distant sound of shifting rocks. As Zait worked, it began to unlock more layers of the security protocol. Slowly but surely, the heavy door creaked open, revealing a dark, cavernous interior. Lizra led the way, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Inside, the facility was a maze of corridors and rooms, some filled with ancient machinery and others cluttered with abandoned equipment. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of old technology lingered. "This place is like a labyrinth," Lizra said, her voice echoing. "We need to find the central control room. It should have the most critical information about Project Omega." As they navigated through the winding hallways, Zait projected a holographic map to help guide them. According to the schematics, the control room should be located at the core of the facility. "We'll need to pass through several security checkpoints." The team moved cautiously, aware that any number of old security systems or traps might still be active. Their path was illuminated by the flickering lights of Zait's holographic projection and the occasional emergency lights that lined the walls. Finally, they reached a large chamber with a reinforced door. The control room was behind it, and the door was clearly marked with several security warnings. Zait began interfacing with the control panel, attempting to bypass the final security measures. "This door was equipped with a biometric scanner," Zait explained. "We'll need to match the scan with authorized personnel records. Unfortunately, those records are likely outdated or corrupted." Lizra glanced at Argyle. "Any ideas?" Argyle nodded and approached the door. "Let me try something." With a powerful swipe, he damaged the panel enough to trigger a manual override. The door slowly slid open with a groan. Inside, the control room was surprisingly well preserved. The central console was surrounded by rows of screens and interfaces, many of which flickered with residual power. Lizra approached the console, her eyes scanning the displays. "This is it," she said, her excitement palpable. "If we're going to find out more about Project Omega, it will be here." Zait connected to the console and began extracting data. The screens displayed a mix of technical readouts, security logs, and project files. One log entry stood out: Project Omega, Final Activation Protocols. All systems are in place for final deployment. Manual override is required for activation. Access limited to high-security clearance personnel only. "This confirms that the weapon requires specific authorization for activation," Lizra said. "We need to find out who had that clearance and if there are any remaining protocols." The screens flickered, and another message appeared. "Warning. Facility self-destruct sequence initiated." The alert sounded a shrill alarm, and the room was bathed in red light. Lizra's heart raced. "We've triggered a self-destruct sequence. We need to get out, now." Zait quickly downloaded as much data as possible while Lizra and Argyle headed back to the entrance. The facility began to rumble as the self-destruct sequence progressed, and debris started to fall from the ceilings. The team sprinted through the labyrinthine corridors, the alarm echoing around them. With Argyle's strength and Lizra's agility, they managed to make it back to the scavenger, just as the facility's entrance collapsed behind them. As they took off, Lizra looked back at the crumbling facility. The mission had been successful in uncovering valuable information, but it was clear that the secrets of Project Omega were far from over. The next step would be to analyze the data they had gathered and prepare for whatever lay ahead. Secrets and revelations. The scavenger glided smoothly through space, leaving the now-destroyed facility behind. Inside the ship, Lizra, Argyle, and Zait gathered around the central console, eager to review the data they had managed to retrieve. "Let's see what we got," Lizra said, her voice steady despite the recent chaos. She inserted the data chip into the console, and the screen flickered to life, displaying the various files and logs from the secondary facility. Zait began analyzing the data, its mechanical arms deftly manipulating the holographic displays. "We have a wealth of information here. The files are extensive, covering everything from the technical specifications of Project Omega to the operational protocols." Lizra focused on one particular file labeled Project Omega, Deployment Protocols. As she read through it, her eyes widened. This document details a final activation sequence and the safety measures in place. It looks like there were multiple layers of security, including biometric and passcode requirements. Argyle, leaning over to get a better look, frowned. So, even if someone wanted to use this weapon, they'd need more than just access to the facility. They'd need specific clearance. "Yes," Zait confirmed. "The activation sequence requires a combination of biometric scans, passcodes, and authorization codes. It seems that only a select few had the authority to deploy Project Omega." Lizra's mind raced. This means that the weapon could be secured, but it also means that whoever has the right codes could potentially access it. We need to find out if those codes are still in existence, and if so, how we can prevent them from falling into the wrong hands. Zait's sensors picked up another file titled Emergency Protocols, Weapons Safeguards. This might have the information we need about the safeguards that were implemented. The file revealed a detailed account of the safety mechanisms designed to prevent unauthorized use. Project Omega has several layers of fail-safes, Zait explained. These include a self-destruct mechanism, which we encountered, and remote lockdown capabilities to secure the weapon if unauthorized access is detected. Lizra sighed with relief. That's good news. It means that even if someone were to bypass the primary security measures, there are still strong safeguards in place. Argyle, looking thoughtful, spoke up. "What about the activation codes? Are there any hints about where they might be stored or how we might retrieve them?" Zait accessed additional logs and found an entry mentioning a secure vault located in a central repository. According to this, the activation codes were stored in a high-security vault within the central command hub of the original facility. It seems that the codes are encrypted and dispersed among multiple locations. Lizra nodded. That explains why the data we retrieved was incomplete. To get the full picture, we'll need to access a central command hub and find the vault. Argyle looked at Lizra. "Do we know where to find this hub?" "The original facility," Lizra replied, "but it's heavily guarded and likely to have its own set of security measures." Zait confirmed, "We should be prepared for a complex and potentially dangerous mission. The central command hub will be well protected, but it may hold the final pieces of the puzzle regarding Project Omega." Lizra took a deep breath, her determination evident. "Then we need to plan our next move carefully. We'll need to gather more intelligence and ensure that we're ready for any challenges that come our way." The team worked late into the night, preparing for their next journey. Lizra reviewed the schematics and logs, while Zait continued to analyze the data. Argyle ensured that the scavenger was in top condition for the mission ahead. As the stars twinkled outside the viewport, Lizra looked out into the vast expanse of space. The journey had been perilous, and they had uncovered only a fraction of the truth. But each step brought them closer to understanding the true nature of Project Omega and securing it from those who might misuse its power. With the coordinates set for the original facility and their preparations complete, the team was ready for the challenges that lay ahead. The secrets of Project Omega were still out there, and Lizra knew that their mission was far from over. The central command hub. The scavenger charted its course through the star system, heading towards the coordinates of the original facility. The journey was uneventful, giving Lizra, Argyle, and Zait time to prepare for the upcoming challenges. The facility, known for its advanced security and critical importance, loomed large in their minds. As they approached the facility, the landscape below revealed a vast, sprawling complex partially hidden by dense clouds and mountainous terrain. The structure was ancient and imposing, its architecture a blend of high-tech design and deteriorating elements. Lizra's heart raced with anticipation and apprehension. "We're almost there," Zate reported, guiding the ship through the complex atmosphere. The facility appears to be intact, but the outer defenses are still operational. Lizra nodded, her gaze fixed on the facility. "We need to be careful. This place is likely to be heavily guarded." Argyle prepared for the descent, ensuring that the ship's equipment and supplies were ready for any situation. "Let's get this right. We don't want to end up in a sticky situation." The Scavenger touched down on a rocky outcrop near the facility, concealed by the natural terrain. The crew donned their environmental suits and prepared to venture out. The air was cold and thin, but the team was focused on their objective. Lizra led the way, her senses heightened as they approached the facility's entrance. The massive doors, reinforced and marked with numerous security warnings, loomed before them. Zate began interfacing with the control panel, attempting to bypass the security systems. "This facility has multiple layers of security," Zate noted. "We'll need to go through several checkpoints to reach the central command hub." Lizra and Argyle took up positions, their eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of movement. The facility's exterior was silent, but the faint hum of energy fields indicated that the defenses were active. As Zate worked on the control panel, Lizra noticed a faint blue glow emanating from a nearby control station. "Zate, what's that?" Zate analyzed the signal. "It appears to be a secondary security measure. It might be a signal relay or a security camera." "We'll need to be careful," Lizra said. "We don't want to trigger any alarms." Zate continued to interface with the panel, working to bypass the facility's defenses. The process was slow and intricate, involving the decryption of complex codes and the manual override of several security systems. After what felt like an eternity, the entrance doors groaned open, revealing a dimly lit corridor. The team cautiously entered, their footsteps echoing through the expansive hallways. The interior of the facility was a maze of corridors, control rooms, and storage areas, all bearing the marks of age and disrepair. According to the schematics, the central command hub is located at the heart of the facility, Zate said, projecting a map to guide them. "We'll need to navigate through several security zones." The team moved through the facility, encountering various security checkpoints. Some were automated, involving laser grids and motion sensors, while others were manned by ancient security droids, their systems still operational but outdated. Argyle, with his strength and agility, handled the physical challenges with ease, dismantling obstacles and providing support. Lizra used her skills to navigate the more delicate security measures, working with Zate to bypass or disable the systems as needed. After a series of tense encounters and successful bypasses, they reached the central command hub. The entrance was heavily fortified, with multiple layers of security including biometric scanners and encrypted locks. "This is it," Lizra said, her voice determined. "Let's get inside and find what we need." Zate interfaced with the central control panel, working to override the final security measures. The process was intricate, requiring a combination of decryption and manual input. The team stood ready, prepared for any potential surprises. After several minutes of intense concentration, the door to the central command hub opened with a hiss. Inside, the room was filled with advanced technology, including a central console and various monitoring systems. The air was cool and dry, and the faint hum of machinery filled the space. "This is the heart of the facility," Lizra said, her eyes scanning the room. "We need to find the secure vault and retrieve the activation codes." Zate began to access the central console, searching for information related to the vault and the activation codes. The console displayed various readouts and logs, providing a detailed overview of the facility's operations. "This console contains the information we need," Zate reported. The secure vault is located in a sub-level beneath this room. We'll need to access a series of hidden passages to reach it. The team followed Zait's guidance, navigating through the facility's hidden passages. The passages were narrow and dimly lit, with old technology and debris scattered along the walls. Finally, they reached the secure vault. The door was heavily reinforced and equipped with advanced security measures. Zait interfaced with the vault's control panel, working to unlock it. This vault is protected by multiple encryption layers, Zait said. It will take some time to bypass the security. Lizra and Arvel stood guard, ready for any potential threats. The facility's defenses were still active, and the team was prepared for any unexpected challenges. As Zait worked, Lizra reflected on their progress. The mission had been fraught with danger, but they were close to uncovering the final secrets of Project Omega. The secure vault held the key to understanding the weapon's full potential and ensuring its safe use. With the vault finally unlocked, Zait retrieved the activation codes and additional data related to Project Omega. The team quickly reviewed the information, confirming that they had everything they needed. As they prepared to leave the facility, Lizra felt a sense of accomplishment. They had successfully navigated the complex security measures and uncovered crucial information about Project Omega. The journey had been challenging, but their perseverance had paid off. With the secure vault data in hand, the team returned to the scavenger and prepared to leave the facility. Their next step would be to analyze the data and prepare for the final phase of their mission.